Plantard. The secret? An organization called the Priory of Sion. Its members were a long list of Grand Masters, stretching back to the 12th century, including Sir Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci. Its mission was to protect the deepest secret of Christianity, one that could prove the entire church was based on misinformation. The secret was about Jesus himself and one of his closest followers, Mary Magdalene.
Jesus and Mary Magdalene were not only an item, but also she was actually his successor.
And, according to some researchers, the mother of his child.
It appears that she and Jesus were desperately in love.
When the apostles fled the crucifixion, Mary Magdalene stayed behind, risking her own safety to mourn the death of Jesus. The four Gospels of the New Testament are quite clear. Jesus was not married. It's even been implied that Mary Magdalene was less than virtuous. But in 1945, new competing Gospels called the Gnostic Gospels were discovered in Egypt, and they depict something that stood out to Lynn Picknett.
In one of the Gnostic Gospels, there is quite a lovely little moment where the male disciples go to Jesus and complain and say, "Why are you always kissing her on the mouth?" And you think, come on boys, think about it.
To some, the Gnostic Gospels are evidence that Jesus and Mary Magdalene may have been married, with a child. If so, the Savior has a bloodline.
According to a number of traditions and some plausible sources, the Magdalene escaped to the south of France,
where a royal bloodline begins. The Da Vinci Code is based on the premise that Leonardo hid coded messages in his works. In the Last Supper, he's said to have replaced the disciple John with an image of Mary Magdalene, whose throat St. Peter seems ready to slit.
You see that St. Peter has a dagger behind his back. He's got his hand on her shoulder, but visually it's actually cutting her head off. It's threatening, to say the least.
One more piece of mischief in the tableau.
With Jesus, she forms a giant M shape, presumably giving a clue as to her identity, presumably Mary Magdalene.
Just a few of the many artistic hints mentioned in the Da Vinci Code. Author Dan Brown says he has no need to defend the truth of a work of fiction. Fair enough. But the book begins with a fact page stating that the Priory of Sion is a real organization founded in 1099, and that the parchments referred to as the Dossiers Secrets were first discovered at the Bibliothèque Nationale in 1975, which were the source for Lynn Picknett's and Richard Lee's books, which in turn were the source for Dan Brown's fact page of his otherwise fictional mega bestseller. So for the fact page of the Da Vinci Code to be factual, the secret documents had better be authentic.
Don't let it keep you awake at night, because the puzzle will never be solved, and the questions will never be answered. National Geographic takes on the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, trying to find the truth behind the legends that have inspired, intrigued, and confounded mankind for centuries. Mystery Files on National Geographic Channel. In the sweeping wilderness of Yellowstone Park, bears alone ruled the land. But then came the return of a formidable foe. Will the wolf be the new king of Yellowstone? Or will the mighty bear cling on to its kingdom? It's the ultimate clash of speed versus strength. in Grizzly Cauldron. Sunday at 9 on National Geographic Channel.
Caesar arrival, take 1.
This is Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, king of the canines. Top dog.
Reclaiming his territory.
The original leader of the pack.
That's a pack, baby, look.
He takes on the cute, the unpredictable, and the downright naughty of the domestic pooch world.
This is the real deal.
Dog Whisperer on National Geographic Channel.
The Da Vinci Code was a bestseller, maybe for the same reason the Shroud of Turin turns out millions of viewers. They both promise a glimpse at the real Christ. For the Shroud of Turin, the matter seems simple. Check for blood. And that's just what these scientists did. In 1978, the shroud was scientifically examined and tested by 24 mostly American researchers with all their fancy modern equipment. They called themselves the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP. They had the shroud for 5 straight days in October of 1978 to take measurements and run tests. Their task? To figure out how the image was formed. Again, a surprise would be revealed about the shroud. Barry Schwartz was STURP's official photographer.
When I was first asked to be a member of this team, my first response was, but I'm Jewish. And being a Jew, I thought, well, this is another one of those things and I'm not really that interested in.
Schwartz's first encounter with the shroud wasn't what he expected.
The cloth was pliable and soft, so I think there was maybe an initial surprise, gee, this is in better shape than we thought it would be.
Then there was the matter of the image itself.
Frankly, I was expecting to see the paint and the brushstrokes and come home. And it took all of about 2 minutes for me to realize that whatever this thing was, this was no painting.
The most obvious marks on the Shroud of Turin are a series of burns and patches from a church fire in 1532. The shroud we see today is actually several different pieces of cloth. There's the original image-bearing linen shroud, the patches sewn on after the 1532 fire, and the Holland cloth, attached as a backing to stabilize it. For 5 days, the STURP team examined the shroud, then spent months studying the data, looking for telltale signs of blood or paint. What did they end up finding in this famous fabric? Nothing but disagreement. You'd think